close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath in and let it out. Forget the ticking clock. Forget the noise of the world outside. You are here to rest. Imagine you are walking into a deep, silent forest at night. The air is cool, the world is still, and you are completely, perfectly safe. Tonight, we journey to a place where light is born from patience. The Valley of Veils was not merely a place, it was a mood. It was a bowl of stone and ancient pine, cradled by mountains that pierced the clouds. For as long as memory served, the fog had been the village's only companion. It was a thick, silver mist that softened every sound, blurred every sharp edge, and turned the world into a quiet, gray daydream. In the heart of the village stood the great lantern. It was a masterpiece of iron and glass, built by hands long forgotten, yet it remained cold, a silent monument to the lost ambition of the ancestors. Elara was a woodcarver. Her workshop was a small, cluttered sanctuary filled with the comforting scent of cedar, beeswax, and sawdust. Her work was not about speed, it was about the wood itself. She believed that inside every piece of raw timber, a shape was waiting to be released. She would spend hours, sometimes days, carefully sanding a single curve, listening to the grain, guiding her chisel with the gentleness of a whisper. Every evening, Elara would walk to the village square and look up at the dark, cold lantern. She didn't see a failure. She saw a sleeping giant waiting for the right moment to wake. "The light is not meant to be found," the village elders would say, their voices like rustling dry leaves in the autumn wind. "It is a dream that faded away." Elara would smile, a slow, quiet, knowing smile. "Dreams do not fade," she would answer softly. "They wait for someone to remember them." The journey to Mount Ethelgard began on a morning where the air tasted of frost and anticipation. Elara packed nothing but a heavy wool coat, a simple lantern of her own, and a heart full of steady resolve. The climb was not a battle against the mountain. It was a conversation with the earth. For the first few hours, the path was easy. The forest floor was cushioned with golden pine needles that hushed her footsteps. She walked with a steady, measured pace. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. As the altitude rose, the world began to change. She entered the whispering woods. Here, the trees were ancient. Their branches reached out like tangled protective fingers, and the wind, passing through the leaves, created a sound like 1,000 hushed voices telling stories of old. Elara listened. She didn't feel afraid. She felt she was walking through a library of nature's wisdom. At midday, she reached the River of Echoes. The water was perfectly still, like a mirror of black glass. As she knelt to drink, she saw her own reflection. But it seemed different, older, wiser, more determined. The river didn't just show her face, it reflected her spirit. It whispered to her that her willpower was the strongest force she possessed. The afternoon brought her to the Frost Giant's Pass. This was the most difficult stage. The wind howled with icy teeth, trying to push her back. But Elara didn't fight the wind. She leaned into it. She focused on the rhythm of her boots against the snow. She found a meditative state where the cold was merely a sensation, not a deterrent. Finally, as the sun began to dip, Painting the snow in shades of violet and gold, she reached the zenith of Ethelgard. The air was thin, crisp, and pure, and there, sitting upon a pedestal of stone that shone with internal light, was the starseed. It wasn't a fire. It was a soft, pulsating glow, warm as a dying ember, steady as a heartbeat. Elara picked it up. She felt a surge of peace flow through her, from the seed into her hands and through her entire being. She realized then that the journey was not just to bring light to the village, it was to bring light into herself. The descent was slow. She carried the seed as if it were a fragile bird, shielding it from the biting wind. She took her time. She sat for a while at the river, watching the stars begin to wake. She rested in the whispering woods, feeling the forest acknowledge her success. When she arrived back at the village, the moon was high. The fog had returned, thick and silent. Elara walked straight to the great lantern. She felt the iron, cold and indifferent. She took the starseed and placed it gently inside the central chamber. She waited. She didn't expect a sudden explosion of brilliance. She sat on the stone floor, resting her back against the iron frame. She began to hum, a soft, wordless lullaby she had crafted during her long climb. Minutes turned into an hour. The darkness remained, and then a tiny flicker, a soft golden thread of light began to wind its way up the internal structure of the lantern. It was slow, patient, and persistent, like a vine finding the sun. The light grew. It spread, warming the iron, then the glass. The light began to spill out, not as a harsh beam, but as a gentle, amber glow that started to dissolve the heavy fog. It cast long, dancing shadows across the village square. The warmth hit the stone houses, turning the gray into gold. Elara stood up. She watched as the villagers began to open their doors, emerging into the soft, warm light. Their eyes wide with wonder. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They simply stood in the light, feeling the thaw in their hearts, remembering, for the first time in generations, what it felt like to hope. Elara looked up at the lantern, then at her own hands. She was tired, but her soul was light. She had done it. Not with power, not with magic, but with the quiet, unending strength of a single human heart. As you listen to this, let the light of the lantern fill your mind. The journey is over. The peak is reached. The light is glowing. There's nothing left to do now but rest. Breathe. And let the peace of the Valley of Veils settle over you. Deep and quiet until the morning comes. Rest now. Your light is burning. All is well.